Hey, this is my report card. Sri Lanka, this is my country. Not my country, but yeah. So, uh, the first map that I used is where geographically Sri Lanka is located. So it's part of Asia. It's an island underneath India, and here it is, more zoomed in, and this map shows the geographic differences of how mountainous it is versus uh, um, its ecological frontier. Yeah, and I want to talk about my human rights grade, but I leave that for till the end to explain and wrap up how why I chose human rights grade C, which makes it more full circle. So moving on to facts and figures, this nation is Sri Lanka. It's in Asia. It has a relatively a good amount of a comparative good size. Its population is 22 million, fairly average. Population growth rate 0.8%, which is good. Life expectancy is very high, not like I didn't expect that high of a life expectancy. Very good. Um, the GDP per capita, that's what I want to focus upon. The GDP per capita it's relatively low. 1200 is low. Um, it has a lot of room of improvement, and comparing it to other countries, um, it stands as a 124th country in ranking, which is right underneath Jordan, and where I am is Jordan, where I live in Jordan right now. Um, yeah, the unemployment rate is 4.5%. It isn't bad. It could be better. Inflation rate is averagely high. Could get better. So everything could get better. Um, yeah, there's always room for improvement. Agriculture products and exports are good. Um, they help a lot of they help in trade, which is very essential to uh, Sri Lanka because it is an island. It was in history. Moving on to historical background, in history it was it was a very important marine trade point, and this gave it a new cultural identity, the one that's in addition to like the direct cultural diffusion that came from India. So most of Sri Lankan culture is India and is Indian culture, and a very important one that like religion that has like swept the nation is Buddhism, and over time two important groups emerged, ethnic groups, the Sinhalese and Tamil, which are actually separated through language. Sinhalese come in a bit of a shorter time, but after then Sri Lanka was subjected under the control of Portuguese, Dutch, and the British, and then after gaining independence, the Sinhalese gained a lot of they dominated um, politically, socially, economically. They dominated this. This has angered the Tamil people, and it has caused an insurgency, and which has later caused which is almost the direct cause of the Sri Lankan civil war between the Sinhalese and the Tamil, where a lot of human rights abuses um, have occurred during that time. It officially ended around 2008 2009 when the governmental military forces crushed this organization that funded the Tamil, which is the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Ialam, and later on, since then, China has financed much of Sri Lanka's efforts to restabilize the politics and economy of the country once again. As an like the after the war, this war has had many, of course, terrible consequences, and China is helping Sri Lanka to regain its position, which it is doing very well. except or like there has been a number of human rights of abuses. I want to start with uh, the police violence. Um, the PTA, the police violence. So there has been police violence like conducted by police officers themselves against innocent Tamil civilians. Um, the PTA helped spark this. So this was a law. It's called the Prevention of Terrorism Act. It was issued as a law by Sri Lanka, and it called for the detainment of people who commit in any or like in some way or are even connected to unlawful activity that is against the law, even minor ones. There has been a lot of arbitrary detention, and this has motivated police to use methods of violence to force people to confess their offenses, even minor ones, just like alcohol abuse or petty theft. Um, this issue has grown, and the police are not like using uh, even more extreme methods such as sexual violence and rape. Um, and harassment to LTTE detainees and any possible members or supporters of that organization. It like this issue has grown very to a very high point that the UN had to take action, and it issued many resolutions, including a consensus resolution, but Sri Lanka has failed to achieve any of them. It had failed to implement all of and to like act accordingly to these resolutions. Um, what I think for me the the solution to this problem is, first of all, the first step is to repeal this Prevention of Terrorism Act, which Sri Lanka will do. It has said that it will do that, but I'm not sure when. Um, and what I think like there should be a complete and total change, a reformation of for the police system. This police system is obviously corrupt and should should change. Um, Moving on, sexual orientation, gender identity. First of all, um, an important thing to know is that Sri Lanka criminalizes homosexuality. Um, so it perceives homosexuality as unnatural sex and a criminal offense. Um, like even though if it didn't criminalize homosexuality, it LGBT is frowned upon the culture. Um, the thing is that there has been a lot of discrimination against these people, against people who identify as LGBT, especially transgender, because especially transgender, and this discrimination has been in the form of civil rights. People have had arbitrary detention, mistreatment, denial to access of employment, housing, or even healthcare, even access to education. This is like very sad uh, that such important civil rights they're denied access to just because of their uh, uh, sexuality. And this has also stemmed to women. There has been gender inequality. Both of them have full access to education, but for the workforce, they completely diverge. So, research has shown that only 35% of all women, or like women who are in a certain age group, like adults, for an example, um, um, only 35% of them participate in the labor force, whereas compared to males, more than 75% of them participate in labor. There's a huge change. And one of a very, very shocking finding was that only 6% of the seat in parliament is occupied by females. The other 94% of these seats are have been completely occupied by males. They're, like Sri Lanka should strive to like at least balance these numbers and statistics. Um, Finally, I chose discrimination against minorities as one different human rights abuse. I think I should have changed it to discrimination against religious minorities because I'm going to focus on religion, how religious differences is completely is religious differences have been discriminated against. Um, there's many. The government are not protecting these minorities, these religious minorities, and the police who are doing these issues, these horrifying torture and actions are not being held accountable at all. Even like and like these actions vary from physical torture, harassment, or even sexual violence. Um, so I want to tell you a few like stories or like no like things that's happened. First of all, there has been. Let's start with this one. So there has been an attack against a Christian community in um, in a part of Sri Lanka, and there was a lawyer who went on national TV and he defended these Christians. But then when the justice minister, who's supposed to be in favor of the law and justice, has has threatened this lawyer who defended the Christian community, has threatened him to remove his license of practicing law. This is shocking, especially coming from the justice minister. That's what's throwing me off. And also, there has been a very important earlier this year. There's been very important Buddhist uh, 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 protests, including many monks, in opposition to religious freedom, and they said that they wanted to clear Christians out of Sri Lanka. Um, it's not safe, and there has been more Buddhist attacks against the Muslims. There has been this specific attack which killed 4 people and injured 80 others, and the Buddhist attacks have been responsible, especially like against Rohingya refugees who fled their country, fled genocide in Myanmar, and in search of safety and security that apparently isn't granted in Sri Lanka. And even if the Sri Lankan constitution grants religious freedom to its civilians and subjects, their protection is not granted at all. They should move. They should strive towards. I know it's like very hard to change the mindset of people of these Buddhist monks, seeing that they think that they're superior over their religion is superior over other religions. It's very hard to change this mindset, but at least there has to be protection. And I want to show you images of some of these human rights abuses. And they I want to, these images they are emphasized and they were held during the Sri Lankan civil war against the Tamil minority, even though I want to point out that some Tamils or Tamil committed war crimes against the Sri Lankan government. um, so so there so the blame is on both sides. It's not just the Sri Lankan government. The first one is this picture. I chose this picture. It shows Tamil civilians fleeing the no-fire zone during the war, and because it has been slowly like taken inland by the Sri Lankan government. And the very sad thing is that this shows that there has been a denial of humanitarian aid. Um, Tamils are not being able to receive aid or asylum by the United Nations, other countries, or even NGOs because it's blocked by the government. And this had this has had a very significant effect. These populations have starved to death. They've been affected by diseases as there have lack of medical supplies, essentially killing many people. And then moving on to oh this picture. I chose this picture captures the emotional instability that they had that the women had to go through. These three women. This picture depicts female Tamil survivors who had to go through sexual violence and rape, and the death of their families and children. This trauma is very painful. Um, and it's shocking to see how the government is using women as weapons of war to promote rape and violence against Tamils. And and it's not that um, these have been single acts committed by single soldiers. There were some accounts that suggest that that rape was a policy. It was mandatory to use rape to inflict torture on Tamils. I can't like it's horrifying that it wasn't like these people who thought like these guard or these soldiers who thought, oh that oh we want to, sure, why not rape some women. No, it was the government telling them that they should rape women. This picture totally threw me off, and um, it made me feel emotional. Moving on to the last image I have, unlawful killings. So this image depicts this leader of the Tamil leader, um, and also there has been an execution of his family, and there was a video authenticized by the UN. It says that that like a soldier like said that our commander ordered us to kill everyone, which led to many mass killings. It has been achieved through security checkpoints and military bases. They have controlled the people. They have controlled the movement of people. This has made the government this yeah easily. It has made it easier for them to attack the people and essentially killing them. By the end of the Civil War, more than 100,000 people were murdered, and God knows how many people have been injured. Yeah. Um, well, this has been uh, a lot of sad issues. Let's go to some happy parts in NGOs. So these four are the four NGOs that I chose, even though there are many. There's a huge list of NGOs in Sri Lanka. Sorry. The first one is Oxfam, and Oxfam it aims to achieve a peaceful environment, um, 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 it aims for economic and gender equality, and helping those who were uh, who need providing aid or assistance. And yeah, care is focuses more on the economic side, and through other social related issues. It targets rural and poorer communities. It distributes food. It provides shelter to those in need and other supplies. Now this one, Friends of the Earth, is a very interesting NGO. Um, it aims for environmental justice, and this is very, very important because recently Sri Lanka has been affected by many environmental disasters. There has been a huge tsunami in 2004, and this year, 2017, there were a series of floods in Sri Lanka that has killed a lot of people. Um, yeah, so Friends of the Earth aims to help these people who are affected by such disasters. And then you have the final one, which is World Vision. And World Vision is basically, it aims to help everyone, no matter um, if they fled war, if they were in a different economic or in a different social standard or status, like for displaced people and free children, and even people who are affected by environmental disasters, which is in fact related back to what I said in the home about the geography, um, about its geography. And the thing that I liked about World Vision is that it works with civilians regardless of caste, religion, language, gender, ethnicity, especially ethnicity, because it's very important for ethnicity because what caused the civil war, what caused all of these human rights abuses was the division of the Sinhalese and the Tamil through language and ethnicity. Now I want to move on to current news. Um, my current news aren't actually that current. Like the last one is almost 3 months ago, and I want to highlight one very important was that in October 1st, Sri Lanka arrests six in hunt for monks who attacked refugees. So some like six or like some monks attacked Rohingya refugees, Muslim Rohingya refugees, and the government or police or I'm not sure who exactly, but they arrested six monks who who took charge of these unlawful attacks. Yeah, there's also been an issue with Buddhist monks. They're actually apparently corrupt, and uh, yeah. Oh yeah, there's one October 5th drought hit and um Hungary. Okay, so there was the see that there were floods and now there's a drought. There's the environment is not helping Sri Lanka at all. So that's why Sri Lanka needs a lot of help and support, which brings me back to my last point, which is a human rights grade, um, which is C, which I put at C. I gave it because there's a lot of progress that's happening in Sri Lanka, but the thing is, it has a very far it's very far away from achieving like achieving uh, it's aspirations, it's human rights aspirations, and one thing that should start to happen is that there should be a political settlement between the two sides, between the Tamil and the Sinhalese, because they both claim that they are striving for peace, but if they're not discussing these issues together, if they're not working collectively to move away and past their differences, peace will not be achieved. They should um, start these peace talks, and that's why I gave the human rights in Sri Lanka C. And yeah, I hope you like it. Thank you.